we're supposed to keep our mouth shut about it. And I don't agree with that. I think that if we want to change, we have to be that change. And I don't necessarily have all the answers to try and be like, well, everyone just needs to go to tattoo school and it needs to be, ran by some of the best tattoo artists, because that's not going to happen.
Like you said, I don't know the solution. I don't have the answers. But if we don't do something, if there isn't some kind of structure and accountability around this, it's just going to be the Wild West. And as much as the gatekeepers think they're keeping the gates shut, the gates are wide fucking open. There's no gatekeeping.
Yeah, I hear it all the time, and it's always like there's so many apprentices, or there's so many people opening studios down the road, or tattooing's not like it used to be. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a result of people using tattooing, I think, unfortunately, in situations like I went in to just benefit themselves. And that's what's sad, because there are people who really want to learn. But if you cannot uphold a responsibility to better the tattoo community, then maybe don't be a teacher.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Artful Dollar podcast. Me, Ryan Roy, tattooer, financial advisor, seeker, student of life, here to learn from all kinds of artists and tattooers and people from all over the planet. And I actually have a guest today that I met a couple years ago. It's someone that I had the honor of getting to work with in one of my very first financial coaching courses. But we have Jess Fox with us here today from True Gloom Tattoo in Buffalo, New York. Jess has an admirable shop, admirable work ethic, amazing tattooer, and they are also someone that has invested quite a bit in themselves and their education, and there's been some stuff coming up around that. So I was like, you know what? I reached out and I was like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about courses and coaches and investing and what works and what doesn't work. Are there red flags, green flags, that kind of stuff? I have invested quite a bit in myself, like a fuck ton in myself, and I've had nothing but good experiences. I've had some bad experiences, but I'm curious to hear from Jess some of your experience, and also just anything that you have to share for other tattooers, shop owners, and their careers. So, Jess, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So where should we start? Should we just dive into the what's going on right now, and then we can circle back around?
Sure. Yeah. So, I agreed to do a 3-month mentorship with someone who was on Ink Master. And basically, long story short, you can see the full thing on my page, but I had ended up agreeing to do 3 months and only got 8 days out of it. And there was a pretty hefty price tag of $8K that was attached to that, which to me, I felt like that was great comparatively to some of the seminars that were being advertised for just 1 to 2 days. So, being able to spend 3 months specializing in a certain style and learn things that I can't necessarily get as a shop owner, to me, it made sense. So yeah, fast forward to now, we are kind of having a back and forth a bit with our lawyers, but that's really where it's at. We're kind of just at a standstill. There's just been a lot of like, he said, she said going on, and no refunds or anything have happened. So
Wow.
we're stuck here. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start with like, what were you hoping to get out of this experience? You invested $8,000, which is not a small amount of money for most people out there. I'd say that's like maybe one of the biggest investments they've ever made in themselves, in their lives. Was that one of the bigger investments you've made?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I didn't actually get to the point where I was going to spend 8. So we only got as far as to spend 6. There was going to be another installment that was going to be due in August, but still I was willing to pay that. So
Sure.
yeah, this definitely was one of the bigger ones. And again, the way that I weighed it out in my head is like, tattooers, there's people who are doctors, and we're charging sometimes next to near those day rates.
Right. Almost as much as that. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, I'm like, okay, it's a huge investment, but think of what might come back from that. And I don't have student debt, and I won't have all of these things that you sign up for when you go through like, a traditional educational system. So again, to me, it just made sense.
You don't have to take physical education. You don't have to take history or anything. You can just learn exactly what it is that you want to learn. And I look at it this way: whatever lessons we want to learn, whatever skills we want to develop, you're going to pay for it no matter what. It's just a matter of, are you going to pay time or are you going to pay money?
Absolutely. And I think the big thing that I kind of keep getting the feedback on was like, well, why would you pay that much? And there was this sticker shock price for this seminar, or mentorship rather. But again, I was somebody who I actually had taken a seminar with when she was working at Inc. about maybe like a year ago. And I learned so much. And, for me to sit here and say I didn't learn anything would be a total lie. So,
Sure, sure. You
um,
you were confident that, okay, I got something valuable then. Of course I'm going to get something valuable now. And I think another thing to point out is how long you've been tattooing now?
8 years.
You've been tattooing for 8 years. You own a shop. For you, it wouldn't be too hard to see a return on that $8,000 investment. Maybe someone at a different point in their career or at a different stage, it just wouldn't make sense. So I always like look at it as like, okay, for me, given where I'm at, does investing in this make sense? Sometimes it's like, you know what, that would make sense a year from now, 2 years from now. Sometimes it's like, man, I should have done this 2, 3 years ago. So it's just a matter of looking at what is the return on investment that I plan to make. I'm going to build skills that allow me to tattoo faster, tattoo better, make my clients happier, and then I can charge more money. And that's a long-term perspective. You have those skills for the rest of your life. No one can take that from you. The other thing is that I love about investing in myself versus like investing in the stock market. There's two things that I think about. One, I can't write off investments in the stock market. You can to a certain degree, but I can't write that off on my taxes. When I invest in myself, I can write that off. Secondly, no one can take those skills from me. I can go bankrupt. I could lose everything, but you cannot take those skills from me. So just like a tattoo is permanent for the rest of your life, you buy it. When you invest in coaching and courses, you learn skills, mindset perspective shifts that no one can take from you.
That's exactly my train of thought on the whole situation. I was never really shocked about the price to begin with. And, there was payment plans. So, it wasn't like you pay everything all at once and then with the promise of education. So to me, it felt attainable. It was like, okay, if I work a couple extra days this week, I can put this money aside that maybe normally I would be saving to allocate for this to happen. And that's exactly what I did. When I was specifically doing this, I was working 7 days a week it was like a month, but I had planned to do that, the entire way just to get myself through it. And my mindset on that was like, it'll be really hard and stressful right now, but like 3 months is not forever. So again, like there was just such a big return investment and like I had my eye on the prize essentially.
So you're not a stranger to investing in yourself, right? You'd already taken a course with it worked out really well. How much have you invested in I like to call it the S&Me 500 if anyone knows the S&P 500. How much you've invested in the S&U 500?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I try to do as much as I can when I can, and I probably couldn't even put a dollar amount on it. Anytime I see an opportunity, I take it. So, for example, there's a seminar coming up right before the Austin Tattoo Convention. In the middle of all this, even when I was still going down there, I made sure I bought that and went to go do that. Because again, to me, I think it's a little bit different of a dynamic. People, I kind of got some heat for people just saying, oh, well, you'll, make friends and build community and do a guest spot. And I think like what people aren't really understanding is like, say I come to guest spot at your studio, like it's not your responsibility to teach me or correct the way that I tattoo. And you probably wouldn't, as I wouldn't go up to any of my guest artists and be like,
Sure.
hey, do it this way. Building those relationships are absolutely like important for community, but I never want to be a hindrance to a friend or someone to take up space in their studio expecting free education back. So,
Right. Can you stand over me and watch me for 3 hours while I do this and critique
yeah,
me on everything that I'm doing and tell me because I want to get all the knowledge. I always say there's no shortcuts in business. There are no
no,
and everyone wants a shortcut. There are no shortcuts, but there are like these cheat codes where you can get the skills that would normally take you 3, 4, 5 years and condense that down to 3, 4, 5 months. That's a cheat code in my opinion. And I want those cheat codes as much as I can get them.
sure. Yeah, same here. And that was the thing, I was like, well, this is going to be an investment. Doesn't much matter if I like this person, like when things started coming to fruition where we were trying to renegotiate the end of the contract to figure out if there's going to be makeup days and when they would happen and all this, fluff. But my thought process was like, hey, like I didn't love every teacher that I had in school, but like what was most important was finishing the course. And that's with anything. Like I've definitely taken seminars along the way that like I really struggled like learning. And that could have just been like the way that I retain information or the way that they were taught or teaching me. And That's not necessarily has to be in the same room as like, do I like this person as a friend and would I hang out with them in my spare time? Like to me, it was like, I'm giving you money to teach me a trade, just like I would go to the store and give the store money for a service or an item.
Totally. Yeah. I have definitely taken courses where I didn't really like the person that designed it or was leading it. And I could put that aside and just say, okay, I don't have to like them. That's fine. I'm not trying to be their friend. Do they have a certain skill set and a knowledge base? And are they teaching it in a way that I can retain and then act on? I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to gain value. It's a business transaction at the end of the day. And if you do like your teacher, I think that's a huge bonus. I think it's easier to learn when you can relate to and you genuinely like the person, but you don't have to. Have you ever had other really bad experiences in investing in yourself or taking courses?
No, I haven't. And to be honest, I feel like even if it's something that I do not specialize in or would even think that I would get something out of, you always get something from it. I've got a couple coming up where people have just been super kind to just be like, hey, I've got an online course, you can take it for free. And it's totally opposite of the style that I do, but I know that if I sit down and I get to learn something about art, I could probably figure out how to apply that to my day to day. So to be honest, like most of the seminars or education that I've had, I mean, aside from maybe my formal apprenticeship, which was somewhere around 9 years ago, it's been really positive. So,
Yeah. I had one experience a long time ago. I was taking a course, we call it like in the realm of mindset. I'm always really into mindset, communication, leadership skills, that kind of stuff. And the course was not at all what I thought it was going to be. And I was very disillusioned. This is like in my early 20s when I first started enrolling in different courses in education. And I'd had good experiences with this particular program, but this one, just something was throwing me off. And I was like, this is not. And it was actually at the time, the most expensive course I'd ever invested in. I think it was like $1,000 at the time, maybe a little more. So I was really hung up on that. I was like, damn, like I just fucking blew all this money. And so I had a conversation with the coach about it. I was like, I just don't feel like I'm getting this. And he asked me in that moment, he said, like, well, let's hold on. There's a problem. The breakdown, we're always looking at breakdowns, which always lead to breakthroughs if you allow them to. The breakdowns around money. So he's like, first, tell me about what's your relationship with money like? And it was at that moment I was like, oh, money is evil. Money is the root of all evil. And you need it to be happy, but if you have it, you're evil, you're a bad person, but I need more of it to be happy. And he's like, how's that working for you? I was like, that's actually not working out all too well. I want to own a business. I want to buy a house. I want to retire. Like, I want these things. If I go the rest of my life with that relationship with money, probably going to be tough. And it's interesting now to look back on, I don't actually think I got anything else out of that course. I don't think I did. But I got that one conversation and it changed the rest of my life. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this podcast. I wouldn't be so fascinated by our relationships with money and coaching and expanding my perspectives if it wasn't for the breakdown that I had in that one program. So I often find like you can sometimes be surprised as to what you get just by simply stretching yourself into those uncomfortable places, having those new conversations that you wouldn't normally be having if you were just shooting the shit with your friends.
yeah, I totally agree. I feel like good on that person for, wanting to have that conversation with you or trying to have a conversation with you because if you don't advocate for yourself or say to someone, hey, like maybe I didn't quite understand that, or hey, I don't know if this is working out for me, that's like potential feedback to help you do better and make you
Yeah.
realize maybe, hey, like my format for teaching is only in this shape. So how can I make it a little bit more accessible in all different shapes for people to understand? And I feel like what is tough about that and really what makes I think a good educator at this point, because I've had lots of mentors along the way, just with, it could be life stuff or in art or tattooing. I think that being able to have those uncomfortable conversations are kind of what can help you either come to either a conclusion or a resolution. Maybe it was just that one thing that he gave you, but it sounds like it changed your whole perspective. So
It definitely 100x'd the investment that I made in that
Yeah.
program. You know, I've
Yeah.
actually taken other programs where I didn't maybe follow through with as much. Sometimes I'm guilty of like over signing up to programs. I've done that
Sure.
before. I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't be in
Same.
3 different programs right now. Um,
Yeah.
but the networking, the people that I met who were also up to big shit in their life, I made relationships in some of those courses, programs that 10x the investment that I made in the program, and I didn't even fully engage in it. So that's another thing is, especially any kind of group programs where you're working with other people, they're all up to the same stuff. I've just found that to be this like hidden side effect of investing in yourself is surrounding yourself with other people that also invest in themselves and are up to big things in life.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, and I talk about this a lot as a leader, and I know you owned a shop, so maybe you can say this. And I've had a shop for, I would say, a little bit over half of my career, which was really tough and a choice. It was certainly a choice to do that.
Yeah,
But I've had a lot of people, work for me, and it's almost like you have so many different personalities, of course, but you have people who are overachievers, you have people who just want to do the bare minimum, and you have people who maybe are a good fit for a little bit and then they're on to the next thing. And I think that being able to be an owner, to go take a seminar or go meet people or have those networks and surround yourself with the people who are go-getters or want to also invest or also want to take this seriously, that might not be something that you have back at home. I would love to say for every year that I've had a tattoo shop that every single person was, had the fire and they were ready to learn and wanted to do everything. But that's not the reality of owning a business. There's,
absolutely.
again, so many different people and personalities and stuff. So I think it's awesome, and I agree that's one of the better parts of being able to align yourself with people who feel the same way. I always relate it to like college. It's like usually when someone's paying for something, it's because they want to be there. So
Yeah, I also, you mentioned, sometimes you get a free course or something like that, and I've definitely gotten courses that were either free or someone let me log into their thing or something like that. Which, if you're in my course, don't do that. People might do that. I don't know. Um, but and there have been times where I took what I needed, but I ultimately just didn't take it that seriously because I didn't pay for it. And there is an interesting thing, like when you pay more attention. And so, like, if you pay $500 for something, you pay some attention to that. If you pay $6,000, $8,000 for something, you pay a fuck ton of attention to that. Like, that's not a small thing. And so, I'm always looking at money as a tool, but it's a tool and it can do different things. And so, you could say money is a tool to help you pay more attention, right? If you're charging more for your tattoos, you're probably paying more attention to the tattoo you're doing. If you're paying more for something, you're probably taking it more seriously, and therefore you get more value out of it. I've even noticed that with clients when I charge more for a tattoo, it's like they appreciate it more. They love it more, and I take it hella more seriously every time I've raised my prices. Yeah, I don't know if that was your experience with like free courses. Like, is there that kind of like, yeah, when I invest,
yeah,
there's definitely a different way that you go about it.
of course, I am a perfect example of this. I don't think that I would be pitchforks online if it was $100 course that I missed,
Right, right. It
So,
would have been like
you
whatever.
know,
Yeah,
yeah, it would have been a wash. But,
it would have been a
once we
wash.
start
Yeah,
getting, yeah, once we start getting to those, almost, 10K, I'm like, hey, that's a down payment for something, that could have
sure.
been an investment in
It could have
my
been a motorcycle.
studio or that's right.
I saw
So
pictures of you with
yeah.
a motorcycle recently. I was like, oh man, that looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've ridden like my whole life, so
That's cool.
it's like my hobby outside of tattooing. But yeah,
So were there any, like, when were the red flags starting for you with this?
since the beginning, but I totally just had my blinders on. My first day, I got canceled on for some like silly reason, and even before that, there was like very unorganized chaos, I want to call it. I would get a message, for example, that would be like, hey, are you sending a payment today? And I'm like, you didn't even send the contract yet for me to like send
Hmm.
it to my lawyer. What are we talking about pay for? I haven't even signed this contract, and in the dialogue that we had, which, all the text messages are up, it was very just like coming from a place which to me felt like it was a need for money. there would be like small comments of like, oh, this and this, that's back when I had a bunch of money. So it's just,
Ooh, that's a
yeah,
bad look. That
yeah,
is a
yeah.
bad look.
Yeah, so it was a lot of like verbiage that was coming from a place of not having money, and it was tough because again, this will be my second studio that I've owned, and I get it, right? So I'm like, okay, I know what it's like to have to renovate a building, or I know what it's like to have to suddenly have to come up with a bunch of money for permits, or thousands of dollars for contractors that you don't anticipate that you're going to need because the plan didn't go your way, right? So I just found myself
Sure.
constantly like wavering with this person of like, okay, they got a lot going on. Like they need money so they can probably like pay a contractor, or pay their like studio manager, or they've
Right.
got a lot
At,
going
at
on. Maybe they
first,
forgot.
at first you could relate and you were open to giving some grace,
Yeah.
like, all right, maybe they got something going on, but those are
Yeah.
definitely some red flags. Is like, if you're working with anyone, tattoo artist, coach, whatever, anything, they need to be putting their clients first and foremost before any amount of money. It doesn't
Yep.
fucking matter how much it is. I don't care if it's $1 or it's $10,000. Put your client first. Make sure a big part for me is like, I want people to see big wins very quickly so that they're like, okay, cool. Like, I know that this is going to work. And I don't want to take money from anyone that genuinely feels like what I'm doing is not serving them. That is not interesting to me. There have been a very small, I can probably count 3 times in the past year in my coaching programs that I did actually give someone a refund. And those unique, and we don't have any guarantee or anything like that because I don't know if people are going to do the work or not, or what they
Right.
do. I'm like, if you do this, like, you're very likely to produce results. There's no way you're going to go backwards, but I don't have like a refund policy. But these were 3 instances where I felt that the person, it just wasn't actually a good fit for the
Mm-hmm.
program, and nothing wrong with them at all. It was just like their situation, their unique circumstances. It wasn't a good fit. I felt like I don't want to take money from this person that is not actually benefiting or growing or gaining value from the interaction. And so those are, yeah, there's 3. I can count them, and I always feel glad that I did, because the last thing you need is someone going off on the internet being like, yo, I paid a
That's
bunch of
right.
money and what's up? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
get it. So like, that is more
Yeah.
expensive than refunding someone, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. It happens, let's be honest, it happens. There's clients that aren't good fits for us. And there's been certain situations where I'm like, yeah, the deposit's not refundable. And I'm like, nope, you can have the deposit back. I'm not the
Yeah.
person for this job. And here's people who I suggest to go see. And that's like a huge thing too, because even if we switch this situation, it wasn't a mentorship. Say I was just getting a tattoo from someone and I go to sit down, and if they're going to already have this connotation with me that they're like, oh, well, my bills were due today, and they're already talking
Right.
negatively about money. I'm like, gonna just feel like they don't care about my tattoo, or they don't care about the situation.
Right. Their mind is
And I,
clearly on something else, not giving
yes.
me value. It's interested in taking value from me.
Yes, right. And, I was always taught I'm never going to sit down and discuss money in front of my clients. That's crazy. So seeing that happen firsthand, and then I'm like in my mind just making all the excuses for them. So yeah, it was like a fistful of red flags. Even my lawyer, I was very open about this. My lawyer told me that that contract wasn't in my favor,
Mm.
and that it wasn't even made by a lawyer, that it was just something to kind of put all the information in one place of like, hey, this is how much you're going to owe. This is what we're going to do. Here are the dates that it's going to happen on. And, my lawyer's thing was like, somebody of this status in the tattoo community, would be very rare for them to act, inappropriately towards you, because they're not going to want to waiver their reputation
Yeah.
over this. So I think that, like, although the contract's in her favor, it would be a rare situation for this to happen.
And I'll say, on the topic of contracts, because we actually just worked with a lawyer. We paid like $7,000 to go over our employee contracts for the people that work for us, for our client contracts and everything like that. And the conversation was as much about protecting us as a company as it was protecting them as an employee or a client. And when you
Yeah.
read a contract, if you're not picking up that there's language in there that is also speaking to protect you and your situation, if you're not picking up on that, like, that's just a red flag. You don't need to be a lawyer to tell if something is speaking in a way that is to protect both parties, because that's ultimately what a contract is it is a way to build trust. And if it only protects one person, what trust is being built? Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. And that's a red flag within itself. And I feel like a lot of tattooers who maybe don't have a lawyer or own a business or have had to make, employee contracts or NDAs or anything of that sort, they have no idea. You know what I mean? And even me, I'm 8 years into studios and I'm like, there's no way that this is going to happen to me. This person's not going to want to risk all of this to just take this money or whatever the situation is. And I didn't pick up on that while it's happening.
Yeah. If you've been enjoying this episode or found my podcast helpful and you think other people would benefit from listening, then all I ask in return is please leave a quick review or subscribe. It'll take just 1 minute and it might help other tattooers and artists find this podcast and help them. So please, it would mean the world to me and it might make a difference for someone else. Thanks. And so it's not going well. It's less than ideal. And you decide, you know what, I'm going to post something about that. What was going through your mind? Was it because you also wanted to make other people aware? Was it because you were like, well, if I bring some attention to this, maybe I can get a refund? Maybe it's a little bit of all of that. What was the kind of motivation to share it on Instagram?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. And I know that is probably taboo because I feel like we're brought up in this industry to kind of keep your mouth shut. At least that's what it was for me 10 years ago. It was
Sure.
You do whatever your tattoo mentor says and you keep your mouth shut.
Right. And they're this high profile person. So you probably felt a little weird doing that, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes with consequences. There's, this person has tons of followers, clients, and tattooers and non-tattooers, tons of people who are invested in this person from, screen. So there's, of course, going to be mixed responses. Luckily, I've had a pretty good response of people having my support, and a lot of people within the tattoo community just reaching out to make sure I'm okay. So I'm really grateful for that aspect, but everyone's going to pick aside. And I knew that the drama part was going to come from that. And my hopes were to get a refund, and that's, I think what's only fair, or even a partial refund at that point, or figuring out, okay, like, here's the time I spent driving down there. Here's the, amount of time that we spent in studio. Let's divide that up with what,
right. Prorate me for what value I actually got out of it versus what I paid for that I didn't get.
Yeah.
And if you had, first of all, if you had gotten that in the first place, doesn't seem like you would have been posting anything.
Not at all. I had spent probably about 2 days going around trying to figure out solutions. And then it was like, well, you quit. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And that's why, I just posted a continuous scroll of my text messages because I didn't want anything screenshot or edited or any of that. And that was to really show that, like, hey, can we switch this to remote? Hey, can I come down once a month instead of, maybe coming down 3 days a week is just feeling like too much for you with the studio renovation and all the stuff that you're, got on your plate. But the response that I got just didn't feel like it was what a teacher would say, which was like, it's not my responsibility. And I'm like, it is your responsibility. Like, this is you are supposed to be a leader in this situation. And you are somebody who is like such of high status in the tattoo industry. And you are saying it's not your responsibility. And I guess I had a lot of really that was the harshest point for me, because I was like, I am your responsibility. Like, isn't my success important to you?
Sure.
If not, then why are we doing this? So
absolutely. Yeah. Both parties have a responsibility. It's not one-sided. The student has a responsibility to show up and make the best effort and sometimes go above and beyond to get the value and the education that they wanted. Like, sometimes that is their responsibility. But if the mentor isn't actually meeting them there, especially if you paid for it, if you didn't pay for it, maybe it's a different story. But even still, if I give you my word, I've had a couple apprentices, tattoo apprentices, and I didn't charge them for their apprenticeship. I knew they were going to work for me for a period of time and then they could fuck off or stay or whatever they want to do. But I kind of liked that model. And I think it's totally fair to pay for apprenticeships as well, however you do it. But it put me in a position where I had to be committed to teach them. And if I wasn't committed, they weren't going to learn to tattoo. They would never work at my studio and no one would win. And so either way, however you cut it, if there's a verbal agreement for X period of time to do this and only one person is taking responsibility for that, there's no workability in that.
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was a resolution. The resolution was just like, well, we're going to end this now and I'm going to make 6K in 8 days worth of work. And I'm like, that sucks because what can I say? I can't argue with someone who says, well, I'm uncomfortable to keep going forward. Well, okay, I can't argue if you're comfortable or not. So I think that's the part that's kind of tough. And I agree, when I originally learned how to tattoo, I worked, I think, 2 years before I even touched a machine. And it was a free apprenticeship, and that's just how it was. And it honestly at that time, I think it was taboo to pay for apprenticeships. So, yeah.
Yeah. If you look at all industries, and I'm always trying to apply the world of business, the world of money, finance to tattooing. In a lot of industries, it's like the company will have a budget for you to invest in yourself, investing in your growth, your personal professional development. They see it as if they invest in you. And I've had employees that I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in their education because I knew it was going to return in the company as a whole. So it's very normal to invest. But in tattooing, it feels like it's new, the world of paying for a course I think it started years ago, very small, and it's growing bigger and bigger. Are you now feeling like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do this again? Or are you like, no, that was a one-time thing and I'm going to keep investing in myself?
No, I'm absolutely going to keep investing in myself. I think that once all of this blows over and people inevitably forget, it'll just be on to the new thing. I hope that in my lifetime I can see some kind of regulations because I think tattooing is in this really strange spot right now where we don't want to involve schools and we don't want to involve law. There's still a bunch of people who are super in disagreements of these seminars that people are doing. And I hear all of that and I hear the reasons why, but I don't also understand how we're supposed to hold our peers responsible to make sure that we're doing the right thing, or how like the industry as a whole can try to do some harm reduction with everything, because I think inevitably it's probably going to keep happening unless there's some sort of situation. I can't talk about how many times I've heard from my clients who want to get into tattooing to other artists if we're even just talking women alone, the abuse that happens within the industry during the beginning years or what it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And again, it's just, we're supposed to keep our mouth shut about it. And I don't agree with that. I think that if we want to change, we have to be that change. And I don't necessarily have all the answers to try and be like, well, everyone just needs to go to tattoo school and it needs to be, ran by some of the best tattoo artists, because that's not going to happen. So I don't know what the answer
Yeah.
is. And I don't know how to fix that, obviously, but maybe down the road there will be some sort of regulations. I always compare tattooing to hair, and I think it's crazy that you need hours of schooling and licenses and all this stuff just to cut hair, but we could have a client come in and literally get their eyelids tattooed without no formal training in some states, which is like just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, my brother's a barber, and I remember when he was going to barbering school, which again, that doesn't exist in New York City. But in New York, he had to go to barbering school to get his license. And then he had to work, I think, at the school or under an instructor, a licensed instructor, for hundreds of hours. It might have been 1,000 hours to get his license. And then he can only cut hair in New York City or in New York State, maybe. He wanted to go work in another state, and he would have had to go through a very similar process all over again to become licensed in that state. And now I think that was overkill. I think that's crazy. But in New York City, if you have a basic comprehension of the English language and $150, you can get a tattoo license.
Yep.
Like the test
That's
is
same
so
here.
pathetically easy. And do you even need, you're in Buffalo, do you need a tattoo license? I heard in upstate it's not even like required, or is that
You
some
do in
areas?
Buffalo, but in Rochester you do not.
That makes sense. It's a big city. Yeah. In New York City, you need a license, but in other areas, you don't even need it. Whereas you want to cut hair, well, we're going to put you through all this rigmarole. Oh, you want to tattoo someone's eyelids? Whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy to
It
me.
definitely, like you said, I don't know the solution. I don't have the answers. But if we don't do something, if there isn't some kind of structure and someone to go to, an authority to create accountability around this, it's just going to be the Wild West. And as much as the gatekeepers think they're keeping the gates shut, the gates are wide fucking open. There's no gatekeeping. Like,
No.
you're over here keeping your gate shut, and there's no walls around you. Your gate is shut, but like people just fucking walk right next to you. Like, there's no actual gate, you know?
Yeah, I hear it all the time, and it's always like there's so many apprentices or there's so many people opening studios down the road or, tattooing is not like it used to be. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a result of people using tattooing, I think, unfortunately, in situations like I went in to just benefit themselves. And that's what's sad, because there are people who really want to learn. And I think those are not the people we need to be taking advantage of. We need to not take advantage of anybody. But if you cannot uphold a responsibility to better the tattoo community, then maybe don't be a teacher.
Yeah. So, another reason why I wanted to talk to you was, one, I just wanted to catch up. It's been a couple years. You were one of the first people to take, at the time it was called the Pirate to Professional course. I think it was like a 6-week financial program. I don't even know how much we caught up. I think I checked in with you after, like, how was things? You're like, yeah, things were great. But how was that? How did that impact the last couple years?
Yeah, for me, it's been great. I still use a lot of the models that you put in place. Like, for example, you told me one about having like all separate bank accounts with like Capital One. I'm getting ready to get married this year. We were able to like kind of budget and do everything with that. My partner is even like, I think follows you and like always talked about all your stuff on there that you're like posting and how helpful it is. And, it's always going to be probably a thing for you where like, people who maybe had no experience with understanding money management versus people who maybe have a little bit or a ton, depending on how they grew up or their relationship to money. Someone like me was really helpful because I was able to finally understand like how to live within my means, how to save for my future, how to budget for the things that I want. If I want something, for example, how can I figure out how to make that happen for me? It's not a matter of, oh, I can't do that because I can't afford to. It's always a matter of how can I do this so I can afford it. So a lot of your mindset that you've taught in that class, I kind of keep with me day to day, which is really nice.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that as a shop owner, as a tattooer, when you started to take on your relationship with money, do you feel like that impacted your art as a professional artist?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like once I was able to really start taking seminars and afford to do that, and again change the mindset of like I can't afford that. There's no way I can take $1,000 course. And it's like instead of thinking that like it's not possible, like trying to figure out the ways to make it happen for me in a way that's not going to like miss a car payment or my rent. So
Yeah, you have to balance it all. I always make this metaphor of like money moving through your life is like a coil machine. And I know some people listen to this podcast maybe never even used a coil machine. That's kind of unfortunate, I think. But, the energy's moving through the machine. And if the capacitor and the coils and the armature bar and the tension in the spring and the distance between the contact screw and all these fun little things are not dialed in perfectly, your energy is going to escape the system and it's going to get hot. And it's not very fun tattooing with a hot ass coil machine that's out of tune. And when you start to dial these things in, I look at like a Seth Safari coil machine. When you buy them, he'll put these little pieces of paper in between the shims and stuff. And he's like, don't move that paper. Like it's there to just bend this out and move this that way because those little dialed in differences make a big difference in the overall system. And I look at money that way. So yeah, having an automatically saved savings account is great. Can we do that for taxes? Can we do that for living expenses? Can we do that for retirement? Can we do that for buying that house and also taking that vacation? And all my kids have birthdays and this and that. And can we dial in that whole system to work for everything? And that's my whole philosophy around money. And it sounds like that's served you well.
yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's been great for me because I've really been able to um take that small foundation and apply it to anything that I wanted to do in my life. And before I would just kind of live what would be paycheck to paycheck or day to day, where I kind of have everything just automatic going where it needs to go. And it's like less stress.
So you didn't feel the need to raise the pitchforks and come after me with Ryan, what are you doing?
No.
And so we got a couple minutes left here. I just had a fun idea. If Jess was to, and I don't know if maybe we'll cut this out or not, but if Jess was to make a 5-minute course for free on tattooing, what would you talk about and what would those lessons be? Like, what are some of the best lessons you've gotten from your career to help other tattoo artists out there from all walks of early tattooing, later on shop owners, whatever it is?
Yeah, I think what you put into it is what you're going to get back. I think that the more time that you spend mastering something the right way versus, the 10,000 hours doing it the wrong way, that's going to really make a difference for you. And that there are no shortcuts in this, and that what you really need to be successful in this isn't going to come from anybody else. It's going to come from within, and the discipline that you have and the relationship that you have with yourself. And I think what you leave behind to other people is really what's going to be most valuable and give you the most respect and longevity.
What's something you've done recently? You've been tattooed 8 years. You own a shop for about half that time. Anything you've done recently that was like, ooh, that was a game changer? Maybe it was something you bought. Maybe it was just something you did, and that could be tattooing, business wise, or anything. Any recent shifts or something that was like, ooh, I bought an air fryer recently, so that's my answer is like get an air fryer. It's the best, but it's not necessarily a
Yeah,
business or life hack, but yeah.
this is gonna be kind of like partially bought, but partially just like I've done. But I kind of took a step back once things started just slowing down a little bit with the economy, and I went from working like 6 days a week to loosening up my schedule a bit and booking out a little bit further. And within that time, I was feeling a lot of like, I don't know if it's resentment or feeling like, am I ever going to get to the places where I want to go? Or will I be able to make a tattoo that looks this way that I'm, constantly hunting after? And I took a step back and I took some time to do different things within the community. So I went and just went to a tattoo convention. I think I did Hudson Valley and I did Virginia Beach, and I just walked around as a consumer, and it was like it was cheap. It wasn't expensive to buy a day ticket, and I made friends, and I was able to see tattooing alive in a way that wasn't just the confines of my studio. And that was a game changer for my mindset, because while I was feeling bummed that things are slowing down and certain things like that, real tattooing is like very much so alive in those spaces where people are excited about the work that they're making and excited to learn more and take seminars. So it was just like a tiny little small thing, but it ignited such like a fire in me that I was like, well, I got to do this mentorship with Gio, or I got to go fly to Austin. Even though I'm not in the convention, I'm going to take this seminar and then go walk through for the day. So just stuff like that has really helped my mindset, and also just being able to sit back and watch and see what other people are doing and how I can kind of apply that for myself.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of tattooers, I don't think we'd normally thinking like, oh, I'm going to pay to go to this convention and not work at the convention. Like, I'm going to go because I'm going to work at it, or I'm not going to go. And sometimes just doing things like that just give us that little shift that are very unexpected. I've been really getting into that my life, my business isn't going to grow in the way that I want it to because of the things that I expect to happen. It's going to be because of the things that I had no idea are going to show up, those synchronicities that evolve out of not just taking action, but taking different actions. So if you feel like you're stuck in a rut in your business, maybe with your marketing or with your art, look and see like what's something you would do just for fun, just to explore something and be open to the possibilities that something synchronistic is going to happen in that. And in this case, it sounds like you didn't expect to have this mindset shift, but that put this fire under you, but it happened. And in that, I get this peace of mind, this trust of like, we get so focused on how do I logically take the right actions in the right order to make my life better and grow my business and da 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 da. And I don't actually think big, beautiful, rewarding lives are created that way. I think they're created by going slightly off the path or way off the logical path, because that's where the magic is. So yeah, I'm just relating to that and sharing a perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had recently in all this travel, connected with a friend and ended up, having this person be my new shop manager. And this person has like helped my studio immensely grow in all types of ways. And like I had never set out to do that, but it just happened, and it happened in such a way that's been such a productive and helpful thing for me. So I've just been really lucky to have those small things. Because, like you said, I didn't go to a convention to meet someone or make a friend, and it happened. And, I'm just lucky for little tiny things like that that happen along the way that you don't expect that end up working out really amazing.
Yeah. So anyone listening to this, be on the lookout for those things. I think the more you open yourself up to that's going to happen, I don't know when, I don't know where, and I don't know what it's going to look like, and I don't know what the end result's going to be. But I'm just going to put my trust in synchronicities and see what happens. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised, and I love to hear that it sounds like that's how you live your life. We are going to wrap up. We're kind of out of time, but how can people find you, see the work that you're up to, learn more about your shop? What's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, it's at Jess Fox Tattoos, and then I just have like a link tree in there that has everything in my bio.
Excellent. Well, whether you're a tattooer, either way, anyone, collector of tattoos, go check out Jess. Is a phenomenal tattooer. Just runs a really tight ship, awesome operation up in Buffalo. I've always admired from afar of what you're doing and what you're up to. I can just tell that there's a lot of integrity and like love and attention that goes into that. So thank you for being who you are, and thanks for coming and sharing your experience. I don't want anyone to take I just want to share these experiences so that people can come to their own conclusions and decide what works or doesn't work for them. And so I appreciate you just sharing that open and honestly.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate all your kind words. So,
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, I just want to prompt that if you got some value out of this conversation, please go and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you saw this podcast. It really helps me out, and it really helps other people to find this podcast. I want more people to have these types of conversations around money so that we can all be more free and at ease and abundant and able to create the lives that we really want to live. So please share this and rate and review. Appreciate it. Thanks.